to another story which really needs us to look at the larger picture and the true purpose of what is aimed to be achieved. I'm talking about the contentious farm laws. Nearly 90 days now that farmers have been protesting, and the impasse continues. The latest rounds of talks ended inconclusively today as well. And in terms of how bitter it got, perhaps this was one of the worst, because at the end of it, the Agricultural Union Minister, Narender Pani, actually did say that he feels those representing farmers were not interested in finding a solution. To give you a bit of background, the latest proposal by the government has also been rejected. This latest proposal was that the government was willing to suspend these 3 farm laws for as long as a year and a half. In return, the farmers had to call off all their protests, go home and agree to certain conditions. The farmers have rejected this outright, said they will only agree if there is a complete repeal of these 3 laws, and will continue with their tractor rally that they aim to bring in to the capital on the 26th of January. Let's listen in to what farm leader Tata has said today.
बातचीत ये हुई कि जो उनको पहला प्रस्ताव था, उनने कहा कि हमारा वही है और आप अगर इस पर तैयार हो और घटा बढ़ा सकते हैं दिनों को, भाई 1.5 साल की जगह 2 हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा, मतलब ये एक उनकी तरफ से आया है, मतलब 2 साल तक वो कर सकते हैं। और कोई इस पर तैयार हो तो हम बैठ के कल बात कर सकते हैं, नहीं अगर तैयार हो तो नहीं कर सकते।
All right. So farm leaders are not interested at all in this. That's what Rakesh Tiketh was saying in that soundbite you heard. The question is, what next? Where really is the middle ground, if at all? Our Ramakumar, professor and economist at TIS, joins me on the show, as does Narender Pani, professor at NIAS. Welcome to both of you and thank you for speaking with us. Mr. Ramakumar, let me just start with getting your view and explain this to us. Now, on the face of it, it seems like the farmers are not accepting a perfectly acceptable solution. If the government does agree to put these laws under suspension for up to 2 years, it would in a sense show that the farmers have got what they want. They didn't want these laws to be implemented, they have been pushed back. But they've not agreed to that either. Why do you think so?
Well, I think it is a question of the conviction about the demands that we hold on to when groups get into agitation. I think there are very 2 clear demands that the farmer organizations had put forward. One is the repeal of the farm laws, 3 farm laws. The other is the question related to legalization of the MSPs. Now, I think it could be seen as 2 separate demands, and I think they are related to each other, but at the same time distinct from each other as well. If the government, can repeal the 3 farm laws, I think there is enough scope for bargaining with respect to the second demand, which is whether MSP should be legalized or not. I'm sure the farmer organizations will be ready to consider a situation where MSP is not exactly legalized, but the government gives some kind of assurance, even if in writing, that the MSP system would continue and that MSPs would be at least 50% more than the cost of production. If that is a demand, or if that is an offer made by the central government, along with the repeal of the 3 farm laws, I'm sure the farmer organizations would be able to consider it. But here the question is, the government is not ready to consider both the demands of the farmers. 1, the repeal of the farm laws, and 2, the question of legalization of MSP. Your question is related to whether the government's offer of keeping the laws in abeyance for about 2 years could be a substitute for the demand for the repeal of the laws or not. Well, I think the farmer unions consider that this is a very historic moment. This kind of mobilization may not be possible in the future. So if the government comes back after 2 years and begins to implement the laws again, such a mobilization may not be easy to replicate. That might be one reason why the farmer unions would like the laws to be repealed now itself. Yet another reason why repeal is important, and this is my personal view, is that these laws are unconstitutionally enacted. I strongly feel that these are laws that should be enacted by the states. Enacting of these laws was actually a violation of the federal principles of the Constitution. Entry 14 in the state list refers to agriculture. Entry 28 in the state list refers to markets and fairs, and both entry 14 and entry 28 are not subject to entry 33 of the concurrent list, as are entry 26 and 27 of the state list. As a result, I think that these are issues that fall exclusively in the state list, and the states should be given the freedom to legislate on such matters. The central government's enactment of the three farm laws thus is a violation of the federal principles of the Constitution, and that is why many cases have been filed in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has not begun to hear the case related to the constitutionality of the bills, but it has been hearing cases related to whether Delhi can be blocked, roads in Delhi can be blocked or not. That is not adequate. So the Supreme Court should also, on its part, begin hearing on the constitutionality problem that the petitioners have put forward, and not waste its time on whether roads in Delhi can be blocked, whether civil liberties are being violated, whether a committee should be asked to mediate and so on.
Taking that forward, I'll come to the constitutionality on it in just a bit, because then we'd also need to understand that what happened in Parliament and what was the sanctity of laws that are being passed in Parliament. So that would be the second part of it, and I'll come to that in a bit. But just about fixating on the protests as well, and Professor Pani, I want your take on this. Do you think that all the focus has become on this tractor rally? Now farmers are saying we will take out this tractor rally, we will take it out peacefully, but that seems to be the bargaining chip. Call off your tractor rally and we will do this. Call off your tractor rally and we will do that. What if we just let this 26th January rally pass and then go back to the discussion table? Do you think there would be a way forward then?
Well, I think the 26th rally, they must let it carry on, because any attempt to stop it will hurt the government's cause. It will hurt the image the government's trying to create about the entire movement and how sensitive they are to farmers. The point really is, it's not about a rally or something else. The farmers believe, and I think they have reason to believe, that essentially they are being thrown into a discussion where the boundaries have been predefined in favor of one side. The laws are already in place. You have decided that it's a law in which a farmer is deeply disadvantaged. And then you're saying, okay, now let's discuss it. Anything they gain from there will still be against them. So they have no option but to seek a complete repeal. The farmers will know as much as anybody else that agriculture requires reform. They are the ones who are at the receiving end of the lack of certainty. They are the ones at the receiving end of crashes in prices. They know it as well as anybody else. But they need a system where they can discuss it and where they can find a way out. The way out may not even be in agriculture. It might be enabling farmers to move out of agriculture, to invest outside agriculture. There are a large number of such issues that will come up. But if we are going to just start off with a set of laws and say, now come and negotiate how much less worse it can be for you, they have really no reason to do so. And this lack of trust that has to be combated. It's not a matter of the rally of the tractors or not. Certainly the farmers have put a great deal of their personal pride into that rally, and I hope it's allowed to go ahead. It's a celebration of India being a republic and a celebration of the Constitution, and I think all such celebrations must be allowed to go forward. But it will not have an impact on the crisis unless they can look at why there is such a trust deficit. And you can see the debate, look at the way the discussions are being presented outside. You can look at the fact that the ministers habitually come an hour late for their discussions. It is to treat them with contempt. And that's not the way you build trust in a discussion. As it is, you're starting by laying down the laws as the basic rule, which are completely against farmers. And you want them to then come and negotiate how much less terrible it should be for them. And all the while continuing to insult them, either through their behavior in the meetings or through a sort of propaganda outside, which consistently portrays it as if they are not listening. You cannot get them to listen. You can't tell a team going into a cricket match, the other side has got 500 runs already on the board, now come and play. You can't do that.
But in a sense, that is the case, isn't it? I mean, I'm just trying to understand this from a holistic picture, because this is one subject where people feel so strongly on either side. But Professor Ramakumar, it is in a sense where the boundaries have been laid, because the laws have been passed in Parliament. And if you take that logic forward, any law which has been passed in Parliament may have a group of people who have a dissent against it, who do not want it, who think it threatens them. And then what? Can the government set a precedent of repealing laws that have been passed through parliamentary procedure? Maybe they can amend them, maybe they can listen and take on board discussion, but that's the way it works, doesn't it? Once you pass those laws, then those become laws. They followed the process. Where in this is sort of a way that the government can save face and also walk back enough so that the farmers are happy?
Look, I don't think that's the right way to look at it, because laws passed by the parliament are always subject to constitutional scrutiny by the Supreme Court. People can file cases against laws passed in the parliament if they are found to be violative of the basic principles of the constitution. For example, the money bill issue, whether some bills can be passed as money bills in the parliament, is currently a case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can say that the law of the parliament is actually violative of the constitution. So that option is always available. And that's why many people have filed petitions in the Supreme Court. Number two is that the way in which these bills were passed in the parliament have been very contentious. The process that was followed. For example, at least two members, K.K. Ragesh and Tiruchi Shelva, asked for a division on the floor of the House. And the rule of the parliament is that if at least one member asks for a division, there has to be a vote by ballot. However, in this case, despite the two requests for divisions, the speaker had asked for a voice vote. And even though whoever heard the voice recording of that event would have figured out that the nays had it, the speaker said the ayes have it. So it was a very contentious issue whether it was to be passed in that way in the Rajya Sabha or not. So from day one, the way in which the law was passed. Number two, afterwards, how the government has reacted to the issue, treating the agitation as some kind of an anti-national event, calling them Khalistanis. Even today, I heard a farmer leader saying on television that many farmer leaders who were coming for the discussion, the 11th round of discussion, were actually stopped on the way. They were checked thoroughly, and many of their vehicles were not allowed inside the premises. So as Professor Pani was saying, there is an enormous amount of trust deficit that exists between the farmers and the government. The government appears to have not done anything to quite assuage that sentiment among the farmers. So the third point is, at every stage of the negotiation, the government has put one step backward. First, it said they will not repeal the laws. Second, they said they will amend the law, and they put forward a set of suggestions. Then they said that they will withdraw the electricity bill. Then they said they will withdraw the penalties on stubble burning. Then they said that they are ready to keep things in abeyance. So the government also is clearly recognizing the power of resistance that is on display in Delhi. And it would be advisable, in my view, for the government to repeal the laws, as the farmers have been demanding, and go back to the drawing table. There is nothing wrong in it. There is no ego that needs to be involved in such a sensitive matter concerning Indian agriculture.
Well, the other way to look at it is that the government is willing to relent. Like you described, they have gone from amendments to now a suspension for up to 2 years. Would that not be enough? The other side, of course, says that if the laws themselves are harmful, why not repeal it? In fact, there is one point of view that says that the laws cannot be repealed or cannot be suspended because they've been passed by Parliament. They can only be repealed. Either which way, it's clear that both sides need to maybe come one step forward to the discussion table and end this impasse sooner than later. If the end result will be achieved only by a repeal by law or reworking the framework of the law completely, maybe that's what it should be looked at as well. Let's hope there is some kind of an agreement in the next few weeks or so. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the discussion. We'll take a very short break on the show. India Revival Mission up next.